OCO, Taishu, and greetings. I'm Jay Winter Nightwolf, and this is Cliff Dive Productions, Jay Winter Nightwolf Live. I'm here with my co-host, Ramon Grimaldi, and my special guest tonight is Darlene McDonald. You don't want to miss this one tonight. So I need to do the land acknowledgement. I don't see it, but that's okay. Oh, so let's pause for a moment to acknowledge the traditional stewards of the lands that we reside on, especially their ancestors, descendants, and all indigenous people who live here now and have lived here on this land that we call Turtle Island. Thank you for that. I see my brother and my very good friend standing over there with all that red behind him, Ramon Grimaldi. Hey, bro, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing even better. Now, put that one in your pipe and smoke it.
I believe you.
And we're waiting on Darlene McDonald. What happened to her? I saw her a few minutes ago. Somebody chased her away? No. Hey, Darlene, how you doing, sweetie?
I am doing very good. Thank you.
I am so glad to see your smiling face. Darlene McDonald is running for the United States Congress out of Utah. And the reason we're doing this show tonight is because I support her and I support what she stands for. And all of you that know me, I don't support a whole lot of politicians, but I consider her to be more than just a politician. She's a woman, and that's highly respected by me and my people. And I'm happy to see her running for the U.S. Congress. So I want to tell you a little bit about Darlene. Darlene McDonald is a local community activist and a member of the Democratic National Committee. She was a delegate for the now President Joe Biden in the 2020 elections. Proud of her. She is also largely involved in the Utah Democratic Party. And she says, I'm running for Congress because I'm tired of seeing endless distractions while our country faces serious and very real problems that are being ignored. Issues like the supply chain, the crumbling infrastructure, the national debt must urgently be addressed. She said, as a mom and a grandma, I want to ensure our future generations have a path to education, employment, and home ownership. So I respect that highly. Darlene McDonald, in the announcement, she said that we can't afford to simply cross our fingers and hope everything works out. We need members of Congress who, instead of focusing on distractions, do real work on real issues that affect real Americans from every walk of life. Her campaign announcement says she works in the technology industry, and she is a writer and a published author. She's also the founder of the One Utah Project nonprofit, which is meant to encourage civic engagement within the BIPOC communities and disaffected voters of Utah, as well as to push back against disinformation. Darlene McDonald, after getting to know her and talking to her, is also a strong voice speaking out against racial discrimination in Utah's public schools. Darlene, so happy to have you on with us tonight.
It is a pleasure to be here with you and to meet Ramon again. Brother Ramon.
Yes. I can't hear you, Ramona. Unmute.
I am unmuted.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
You got to speak into the microphone.
Like this.
I'm not the only one. So, anyway, Ramon, what did you have to? You have something to say before we go on with this conversation tonight?
No, I'm just happy, really, to see some conscious people finally running for office. I mean, we've had enough of the people that are kowtowing to special interest. We've had enough of the people that are kowtowing to the NRA, for God's sake. We've had enough people that have kowtowed to Big Pharma. You know, it's time for somebody to go in and do what the mandate of the Constitution said they were supposed to do. It's of, by, and most important for the people. And you've got somebody right there in the middle of that screen that is for the people.
Absolutely. Darlene, I noticed that you have a high and heavy concentration in the area of education. Um, Tell us how you feel about the education system now that we know in America. Is it reaching out? Is it touching those that need to be touched? Is it really doing its job?
I'm going to say, because I was educated in the public school system,
Mm-hmm.
that we have some phenomenal, phenomenal teachers in our public school system that are not failing our students at all. We have certain areas where it is lacking, and we could do better. And we can educate and recruit our teachers that are from diverse backgrounds, because
Mm-hmm.
diversity of voice and experience lend to the education process. We need not only just more people of color, all that is African Americans, that's Native Americans, that's Asian Americans, that's Mexican Americans, all different types of diverse backgrounds in the classroom as teachers, because we know that our students learn better when
Mm-hmm.
there is a diversity of teachers in the classroom. We know that. That has been proven. And especially for our students of color to be able to see themselves in the teachers that are in the classroom. So I'm going to give my shout out to the teachers in this country, and especially in Utah, because they have really have taken so much over the last couple of years with the whole hoopla about the mask, wearing masks during the pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
and as well as the whole diversity, equity, and inclusion training that a lot of the school districts around the country started giving to their teachers. They have taken a beating. Many of them have left the field and left the profession. You can't pay them enough to do that work, that they have been under attack by parents who are insisting that they're teaching their children something that they are not teaching their children, that they are, um, what's the word? I forget the word that they use,
Critical race theory.
indoctrinating, that they are indoctrinating their students, their kids, and teachers have left. And now, and this is the part that pains me the most, because I think about, I like I said, I'm a product of the public school system.
Right.
And my teachers would have taken a bullet for me. But oh my gosh, we are demanding that our teachers take a bullet for our kids now. And it pains me that that is part of the job requirement, is they are combat ready, because we can't seem to do something about the gun violence in this country. And that kind of,
Amen. 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 You know, we did a broadcast a couple of weeks ago on the gun violence in this country. And, you know, I'm a very critical thinker. Um, what bothered me the most was when those police officers stood outside the door of that classroom and waited until this guy had murdered all of those children to even try to go in and stop him. Now, I know somebody ain't gonna like me for saying this, but I don't care. Had they been all little white children, they would not have hesitated to knock that door in, knock the window out, and go in there and save those children. But because they were not little white children, they were little brown children. So I don't care what anybody thinks or what anybody feels about this. It's a racist environment in America, and it has been that way for over 600 years, ever since they came across the Atlantic Ocean and invaded us. They came here with just one thing in mind: to eliminate or exterminate the American Indian people. Then they went to Africa and they brought Africans here and enslaved them. So we have not been on the right foot with history at all. And now they don't want teachers to teach about critical race theory because it's going to hurt some little white child's feelings. Well, you are due to answer what you did to people of color in this country. You stole our land. You murdered us every time you had an opportunity to. And you murdered black people and hung black people at will, only because they didn't agree with you or because there was somebody white walking down the sidewalk and you wouldn't get off the sidewalk. Now, if that ain't racist, I don't know what is. Who wants to go forward with that?
it's history. I'm going to push back a little bit on what you said, only because our teachers are not teaching critical race theory in this school. What
Mhm.
the the hoopla is, we all know what happened during the summer of 2020 and the murder of Mr. George Floyd. And
Yes.
after the murder of Mr. George Floyd, it for me it was a moment that resembled the televised march from the Edmund Pettus Bridge, when the first time, and for some white Americans, that was the first time that they saw what the Black Americans had been saying about what has been happening to them in the South, what their interactions with law enforcement was like, and what the segregated South is really like. And they got to see that in prime time on a television. This is when the television was still relatively new.
Yeah,
And they,
black and white TV. Yeah.
exactly. And
Mhm.
they went, oh my goodness, this is for real. Yes, it is for real. And when we saw, and it's hard for me to get through this really, we watched a man die on our television. We watched George Floyd die.
Mhm.
And there was, you could not deny that. And the summer of 2020, and the late great John Lewis has said this, it was a multicultural, multi-generational coalition that took to the streets. It wasn't just Black people.
I know. I know.
They took to this all over the world. All
Yeah.
over the world, they were marching for Black Lives Matter. And what happened to George Floyd? In countries and companies all over the United States, especially, started to say, okay, what can we do to make our internal environment here better, more diverse, more inclusive, more equitable for our workforce? And this started the, oh my goodness, the companies are being woke. They're woke.
Mm-hmm.
That's where that comes from.
Right.
So everything that became more inclusive, more diverse, they put it into this bucket, and I call it a bucket.
Mm-hmm.
Diversity, bucket. Anti-racism, bucket. Inclusion, bucket. And they call all of that critical race theory.
Yes. But let me give my statement a little clarity. All white people are not bad, because I know a lot of good white people, and they're my friends. Just like all black people are not good. And the same with Native American people, Latino people, and every color under the sun. I remember what Dr. Martin Luther King said: do not judge me by the color of my skin, but by the content of my character. And I was there on the mall when he came to Washington, D.C., the day that happened. I was just a little boy, well, a young guy. I'm trying not to tell my age. Shut up, Ramon. But I'm sitting with my feet in the reflection pool, close to the stage where Dr. King gave his speech. And I'm watching, then all of a sudden I hear all these people coming back from behind the Lincoln Memorial. And I looked up, and that was Dr. King being escorted to the podium. Okay, as a little boy does, I jumped up and I ran over to him and I looked at him. He looked at me. I said, "You're Dr. Martin Luther King?" He said, "Yes, I am." He said, "And you're a little Native American boy?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "This march is not just for my black brothers and sisters, but it's for your people and people everywhere." And he reached out and shook his hand and gave me a hug. And I will never forget that, because that man had such an impact on my thinking and my development as I look at the human family. So I had to put that in there. Ramon, you're not saying anything.
No, I'm politely waiting my turn.
Okay, you got
And
the turn.
Darlene, I've got to tell you, you mentioned how companies are now thinking about inclusion and things like that. And the way I looked at it is, how are we going to pay a little bit of lip service? How are we going to put a little bit of nail polish on these pig hooves just so it can look pretty for now, until this George Floyd thing dies down and we look like we're on the right side of history until we can go back to where normal is? And that's what's going on. I mean, nobody's woke. I mean, they've been woke. They're woke to economics. They're woke to window dressing. They're woke to whatever it takes to keep my company where it is, the status quo, and get it to go higher. This is nothing that they're doing that is really, I'll tell you, it's not motivated by good conscience. I don't believe it, and I don't believe in it. My wife works in the IT field. I would love to say what international company she works for, but she loves her job so much, so I'm not going to get her fired. But they have this racial inclusion and racial sensitivity courses and all this kind of stuff. And they made her take them. And she's a very passive person, but I stuck her with enough ice picks. She finally asked her project manager, said, "Listen, why am I being made to take the racial sensitivity course when it's about me? You know, I could give the course. I could tell you what's happening with me in this industry and in this company. But instead, I have to take the course." I mean, there's just a whole bunch of tomfoolery going on right now, to be frank about it.
Mm-hmm.
You talk about critical race theory. I mean, Ron DeSantis in Florida, he knows that's a crock of bull. Marjorie Taylor Greene knows it in Georgia. Greg Abbott knows it in Texas. But Donald Trump has opened Pandora's box, and he has made it not only okay, but he has made it a politically expedient way to go about winning in politics, where you boondoggle things, you open up areas that aren't even true just in order to get votes and pander to your base. I mean, let's think about it. With Ron DeSantis, the don't say gay and don't say anything in school that will embarrass or hurt white students or their parents. Now, their parents aren't in the daggone school, but we're worrying about it offending their parents. So if you think about it and you extrapolate a little bit farther in time, and then I'm finished. If Roots came out today like it came out in 1971, you would not be able to show Roots on ABC television in the state of Florida. And that's just a damn shame, because they want history their way. They don't want true history. They want it sanitized. They want it their way. And we're starting to see, Newt Gingrich said that we have passed a watershed mark in American politics. And that's one of the only things that I've heard him say that's true for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
He's right. And the watershed moment is truth means nothing. Real history means nothing. It's how you slant it, how you tell it. You know, that's the watershed moment, is the fact that now we are starting to be citizens of a totalitarian government in a totalitarian country.
You said it. You said a mouthful there.
Okay, Darlene, it's your turn.
Well, education is top of my list, my platform. I'm a student of history. I'm a forever student, and I'm a student of history. I read a lot. I love learning. I love talking about history and history of this country. I think the truth is how we reconcile with our past so that we can move forward. So education is at the top of my list when it comes to my platform and the things that I am running on. One of the challenges that I face in my race is, and I'm sure you two gentlemen are aware of this, is gerrymandering.
Yeah.
And this, oh my goodness. So this district was gerrymandered. Whew.
The state of Utah? You kidding me?
Yes, yes. And it is, there are some moderate Republicans out there who are not happy with the direction of their own party. And the ultra MAGA radical far right candidate that I will be running against, he doesn't get a lot of the airplay as Marjorie Taylor Greene, but he is right there with her.
Mm-hmm.
He's an African American man who was raised, yes, an African American man who was.
I'm shocked. I'm shocked.
And part of his platform is being raised during the Jim Crow segregation South.
And he didn't learn anything. He didn't learn anything, did he?
Well, I if you follow my Twitter feed, I went after him today. He has a very bad habit. I'm going to share this with you because I'm going to bring it up to him if he shows up to debate me. He has not debated his Republican primary challenger. So if he shows up to debate me, one of the things that I'm going to say is how he misrepresent the Jim Crow era. And he does that to appease his base. He makes the Jim Crow era out to be a glorious time for African Americans and African American families, and he said we own businesses, and we were business owners because we couldn't do business with white merchants. He leaves that part out, and he does this to appease his base, to basically say the Democratic Party has destroyed the Black community, and here's why: because we used to be business owners, now we're Democrats, so we're not, and it's the Democrats' fault. He totally missed what Jim Crow was all about. He doesn't share that with his base. So he misrepresents history. And I call him out on this every chance and every opportunity because it is that type of rhetoric that makes it dangerous for us.
Yes,
Think
yes.
about what happened in Buffalo.
Okay.
That, yeah,
And you can even go further back than that. Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma,
yes,
where black folks decided that, okay, so we're not on paper slaves anymore. Let's pool our resources and build for ourselves. And
yes.
what did they do? They burned it down.
They burned it down. And pretty much they're doing the same thing to our votes. I mean, when you think about what gerrymandering is, it's allowing politicians to pick their voters rather than the voters picking the politicians. And they slice and dice these districts. They cut out the people whose voice they don't want, and they pack these districts in with like-minded voters. And the reason why it's bad for democracy, period.
Mm-hmm.
It's bad,
Yep.
and that's pretty much what's happening right now. Is you end up with a Congress that doesn't represent the people really, because you end up with Congress that is further to the right than what the average American voter is, and that is because of these districts are gerrymandered, and they get in there and they cater to the extreme elements of their party. This is not good for the future of our country.
One thing I want to say, actually, well, before I say that, is I just saw one of our Cherokee brothers, Daniel Miller, OCO, bro, and thank you for watching the show tonight. But one thing that I would like to drop in here with, oh my God, what was it? All right, Ramon, don't start. Um, this whole thing about get over it. Get over what? Get over you putting my black brothers and sisters in chains. Get over the story that I saw on Netflix, which is titled Slavery by Another Name, when you all refuse to allow black people that had worked your lands and your cotton fields, um, and you couldn't stand not having them making profits and putting them in your pocket. But you found another way to keep black folks in slavery. And you know what that was? They developed a prison system,
Yes.
you know, and they were saying things like, well, white folks had a problem with slaves being free because they couldn't get what they got for free labor any longer. So what did they do? They devised the prison system that we have now. And they were renting slaves for as little, no, not slaves, but black imprisoned men for as little $9 a month. And they were making thousands a day. So if there is a lawsuit that should be put into place, is to sue their their descendants that have profited off of the backs of black and Indian people that they had enslaved. They put them in prison, and they made all of this money, millions and millions and trillions of dollars since then. So why won't you share what you stole from us?
There's another side to that too, Jay. But what I'd like to do first, and thank you, Leslie. I saw that come up. And Darlene, I'm going to let you take this. It said to explain to our viewers what the term gerrymandering means. And then I've got something to say about this.
Yes, and I hope I don't sound too long-winded on this one, but
Go right ahead. This is your show today.
every 10 years we do the census. And after the census, state legislators redraw district maps, the congressional district map in state houses as well. And that is all based on census data. If you can recall what happened in 2020, there was a concerted effort to not have people fill out the census. And there were many districts in many states that were undercounted. And I believe New York lost a seat. I believe California lost a seat.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, so that's how we get our congressional and state house voting map. So you have a state representative that represents you, that you vote for, that I hope you vote for, that is based on these maps. And the same is true for Congress, not the Senate, because the Senate is a statewide race, but it is for the Congress, and it's all based on census data and numbers. It's a numbers game. So if you don't fill out the census, not only do you lose financial resources, and it really hurts communities of color when they don't complete the census, but you could also lose your representation in your state legislature, as well as your congressional. On a federal level, you could lose representation. So that's the bigger picture. Gerrymandering is when they cut the map and they create these maps to cater to who the political party in power. So if you live and both sides do this. I'm not going to say just Republicans do this. No, both sides do this. And you do have, and we've had just this past cycle, Democratic maps that were tossed as well as Republican maps that were tossed.
Mm-hmm.
But we also have an unfriendly Supreme Court that allows a lot of this to take place, and have basically said so racial gerrymandering is supposed to be illegal, but the only way to prove racial gerrymandering is you have to prove intent. And that is the hardest thing to prove, is that someone has gerrymandered a district based on race. And this came from the Roberts Supreme Court, because we don't have a friendly Supreme Court when it comes to voting rights and making sure that we uphold our voting rights.
And women's rights.
And women's rights. Yes, because that's happening too. Or women's rights, you're right. Or rights of employees as well, because they're not very friendly on employees. Employers, yes, but not employees. Mm-hmm. So they cut out the maps, and it ends up being very friendly for the political party that's in power. So for me here in Utah, I was in a district that was a plus 13 district that was winnable. Very, very winnable. It was represented by 2 Democrats at one point. So it's a relatively new district. I think they formed it in 2012, I believe. So it's not very old. It's not an old district at all. So 2012 had 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans now. So they gerrymandered this district to now be a plus R31 district. They cut out the liberal vote in the north of the state and expanded the conservative vote in the south. And this is one thing I always want to impress upon people, because the Republicans may see that and say, yay, more for us. Not really. Because when you have a representative who feels so safe in that district that they don't even have to show up and talk to you, you are not represented either. And the person I am running against, once he gets out of his primary, that he skipped his debate. He had 4 debates that were scheduled, and he skipped them all. Didn't even bother to show up. Didn't bother to show up for his own primary. It's not even against a Democrat, for his own party. So he's not even talking to fellow Republicans. And that's what happens when you gerrymander a district so radically that the incumbent feels so safe that he doesn't even have to talk to his own people.
And see that's something that I want to talk to you about, and I want to get to that before we lose this time. And it's really important because I've got a question for you.
I'll be right back. I got to go let my dog out.
Okay, give my niece a scratch for me. The thing that I see is the gentleman you said that had the opinions about Jim Crow, and as Jay was talking about, the get over it people. And I mean, I understand that. Yeah, get over it. You can't get over it, but you can prosper in spite of it. But
Yes.
then look what happens. We had Black Wall Street. We had Rosewood in Florida. And in a lot of the suburbs of major metropolitan cities in the early 1900s, that it didn't look like it looks now, where major metropolitan areas are primarily minority. Then they were primarily white. So we were in the suburbs, and we did have our own economics. We had our own enclaves, our churches, our schools, our nightclubs, and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
But then you weren't satisfied with that because we weren't getting over it, but we were prospering in spite of it. So
Mm-hmm.
you come and burn it down, you come and tear it up, or you come and buy it up and gentrify it, which is happening in DC right now.
Yes, all
And
over.
that's where the problem is for me. Now, I don't necessarily take issue with the gentleman when he says that the Democrats have not helped us be more independent. And I got to slap Joe Biden. I just have to, because what he said is how he feels and how he has felt since the early 70s. If you don't vote for me and you don't vote Democratic, you're not black. And it's the same thing that you're talking about, that when a person feels, I don't even have to campaign to you because where else do you have to go? That is a problem. And you're right. There are Republicans now that are decent people. Not all Republicans are heinous folk, even though it looks like they are. And they're doing a bad job of PR for that party. But there are Republicans that are of good conscience, but they have a different idea of governmental fiscal responsibility than maybe some Democrats do. There are some Democrats that don't necessarily like the spending policies of Joe Biden and of the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi. That doesn't make them bad Democrats. But what it means is there needs to be another party, because neither the Democratic Party or the Republican Party are now speaking for the majority of people. And that's where the problem is.
I
How do you get around that?
Well, I think you're gonna me as a Democrat and understanding how the electoral system works in this country, and what happened with the Whig Party, they disappeared, right? You don't
Right.
have a Whig Party, Republican Party, Democratic
Or
Party.
a bull moose party.
Yes, is that it? It just doesn't work simply because we have something called the Electoral College, and that's a whole nother conversation, a whole nother segment.
Which needs to be torn down. But anyway.
Exactly. We have the the Democrats lost the white vote when Lyndon Johnson passed the Civil Rights Act of 1964.
You're
They
right.
lost it. And what the Democratic Party, and I'm saying this as a Black Democrat, what the Democratic Party must understand about who their voters are. And the Democratic Party has been forever searching for that elusive vote, whether it's the white suburban women, whether it's white male. White women, white male have not, as a majority, have not voted for Democrats since 1964. It hasn't happened. When we talk about the working class are your people of color. When you're talking about, well, Joe Biden has a problem with the working class voter, be specific about that, because Black working class voters, Hispanic working class voters, Native American working class voters are voting Democratic. if you're still trying to reach the voters who haven't voted for you since 1964, are you going to go back to an 1877 compromise and throw your black voters under the bus? So the Democratic Party is going to have their own come to Jesus moment about who their voters are.
Well, they also need to have a come to Jesus moment about the fact that there is a large segment of the Democratic Party that is also racist. You can never get yourself straight. You can't get well until you can find out what your sickness is and how sick you are.
Yes.
That's how they can't get that party well. And as far as for Lyndon Johnson in 64, the last pen that he signed, he gave it to one of the leaders of the Democratic Party. And he said, I hate doing this. I hate signing this. He said, because I know that with the stroke of this pen that I'm now handing you, I am condemning my party for the next 100 years. And so far, he's been right. But the problem is, and it's not just Democrats, it's politicians in general in political parties. They look at segments and blocks of society as being monoliths. They think Black people are monolithic, and that's not true at all. We all don't think the same way. I mean, you weren't listening in the early 60s, were you? Where we weren't a monolith. We were not all, behind Dr. King. No. There were some of us that were behind Malcolm X. There were some of us that weren't behind either one of them because they were establishment, and we were behind people like Angela Davis and H. Rap Brown. We are not a monolith, and until you can understand that, but it's easier for you to think of it in monolithic terms. We're all the same, so we'll just give them this bone and everybody will bite off of it.
That's true. That is very true. And someone actually said, isn't the Jim Crow conversation just part of the rhetoric? Yes, it is. It is. It's appeasing racists, basically. It is. You have a Black man saying the same thing about Black people that racist people say about Black people. And that's what it does. And it makes it extremely dangerous for our community.
But don't you think it's eye-opening, though? I mean, really, because if you think about it, and you know what? I got to give Donald Trump credit for this. He put his finger on a pulse, and he said, let me ask you this. I'm feeling the pulse of the inner city. What has the Democratic Party done for you in the past 50 years? Are your inner cities better? Is your job rate better? Are your opportunities, is your education, is your healthcare system better? And truly, the answer to his question was no on each one of those. So you do have to blame.
Agree with that.
Well, the figures kind of agree with me, but I respect your right to disagree.
I disagree. I believe, and this is the thing that I push back against. Democrats, especially Black Democrats, are always criticized for expecting government to solve all their problems, to expect government to fix things for them. Now, there needs to be a level playing field. Yes. I mean, make sure when you think about the subprime housing market, it was our African-American communities and our Hispanic communities that were targeted for those subprime mortgages. You think about redlining. If you make sure that we have a level playing field, that's what the government can do. And then it can get out of our way and we can do the rest of it. So we're trying to have government solve our problems for us. But the playing field does need to be level.
Don't solve my problem, but remove the obstacles.
Yes, remove the obstacles. Exactly. Stop having predatory lenders that's targeting our community. That sort of thing.
Jay, I want you in here, and then I've got to ask Darlene a question that's crucial to her being a congresswoman. Go ahead.
Okay. Darlene, you remember James Brown, right?
Oh, yeah.
He said, I don't need nobody to give me nothing. Just open the door and I'll get it for myself.
Yes.
Now, on that, since you were Joe Biden's delegate, I know, excuse me, I know how I feel about Joe Biden, and it's a good feeling. I think he's been a good president from the time he stepped in office. What are your feelings on that?
I like Joe Biden. I also am a student of economics. I understand how inflation works. I understand how bottleneck supply chains work. I understand cost push inflation. I understand supply and demand. I understand monetary policy, fiscal policy. I know how we got here. So I know that even though we are a large producer of crude oil, that's not what's making the gas prices go up.
No.
I'm not going to lie to the American people or to the people in the constituents in CD4 and say it's because of the Democratic policy, the reason why gas prices are $10 a gallon. That has
not true. Not at all.
So if telling people the truth is something that is elusive in politics right now, which is why people have turned it off. They don't want to have anything to do with politicians because they keep lying to them. So it's like, if you want to hear what I have to say, I'm not going to lie to you, but you might not like what I have to say. So but at least I'm not going to lie to you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your answer. And I'm going to call you something, Shirley Chisholm II.
I got my chair too. I got my folding chairs in the garage and I'm ready to like put it up.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Ramon.
I got a question for you, and it goes to the root of what the problem may be in Congress, especially in the House. When did you start your campaign for the House? And then this gets to my question.
I started in March. I started later than most people.
What's the average for most people?
Last year, like last October, November.
Like about 9 months out.
Right. So I started in March. So I'm late. This is my first my first full quarter. So I need some donations. I need lots and lots and lots of money. Because my candidate, the person I'm going to be running against, he is financed by a lot of dark money, 80% outside the state. That he's got millions of dollars by pandering, as the young person said, pandering to the far right. They are filling his pocket. As long as he keep with those right-wing talking points, they are filling his pocket. He was on Tucker Carlson last night. Tucker Carlson. He talks about the white replacement theory. They give him money. A lot of people with Donald Trump, even people that Donald Trump had bamboozled out of money and scammed out of money, they've given him money. And so he's gonna have a lot of money. And I'm running a grassroots campaign. I don't have dark money in my pocket. So it's a grassroots people powered campaign, and $10 goes a long way. I have a fantastic team that believe in what we're doing. Thank goodness for that.
And that's what I want to ask you about. And here goes the two parts of the question. You're right. 9 months out is usually what it takes. Mm-hmm. And it's a 2-year term, right?
Yes.
Okay. So here's the question I have for you, because I grew up on the Hill. I lived 4 blocks from the Capitol for 53 years. And I know this, but I've got to ask it to you because a lot of people around the country that may be looking at us don't know. Do you know in the first 30 days, the 2 groups that are formed by every House person when they get elected? The first 2 groups.
No.
The first one is your transition team, and the one that gets you started and gets you going to get you up to speed. Yes. The second one in the first 30 days is your re-election committee. Yes. That's what's wrong with government today. You don't even get a chance to govern because the first thing you have to do is think about re-election. That just takes you totally out of the realm of being able to do the job that we put you there in the first place. So that's what's bad about it. Maybe it should be 4 years, so at least you get a year or 2 to be able to govern and think about us. But it's mechanically almost impossible for you to think about the needs of your constituents, because the minute you get in there, you have to think about, oh my God, I've only got a few months to try and get some money to get together to be reelected. I got to get a reelection committee. It doesn't give you a chance to govern.
You're 100% correct. It needs to be reformed. I agree 100%.
So if somebody, say like me, an everyday citizen, want to support you financially, how could they do that?
The best way to do that is my website, which is votedarlene.com. I have a donate link there. You just click on the donate link, and like I said, any amount helps. For individual, the maximum is $2,900. For couples, it's $5,800 within the same household. That's $100, $50, as much as you can give. $4. We have this 4x4 campaign, 4 for the 4th. So because it's the 4th district, if you got $4, we'll take your $4.
And spend it wisely. Yes. Okay, well, I will be sending you a contribution very shortly.
Me too.
Yep.
Thank you.
And I got some other friends out here that I told about you. I said, you need to meet my sister. Well, who's that? I said, she's going to be a congressional member real soon. What's her name? I said, Darlene McDonald. They said, wow, you know somebody that's running for Congress? I said, I've known a lot of people throughout the years that have run from Congress, but she is one that I trust. And she is one that I know will do the right thing for the people and by the people.
Yeah, she's somebody I don't mind living in DC and being a neighbor of mine, because a lot of those 521 scoundrels I wouldn't want anywhere near me. But Jay, I'll tell you what, if people, and Darlene, I hope this was on your webpage, and Jay, I'm sorry, I forgot to forward it to you, but I have to. You did a press release on Uvalde. Oh. That thing was crafted beautifully. It was a work of art. Is that on your Facebook page and your website?
Yes. Well,
people,
I don't know if
please.
it's on my website, but it's on my page.
Oh, people, please go and read that. You will know why to vote for Darlene McDonald if you just read that and nothing else.
And if you want to have a real fighter in Congress, that's the woman right there. She reminds me so much of Shirley Chisholm. It's just phenomenal. And I will support you forever, Darlene. So let's see how much time we got. Where are we?
0.
Okay. Okay. So I guess we got 10 more minutes. So Marina Hernandez, thank you. And she said, it's nice to see everyone again. So Marina, get out your checkbook, your credit card, and send Darlene some money so we can help her get to Congress. Because I know having her in Washington, D.C. is something you do not want to miss. Ramon?
Indeed. And yeah, Miss Hernandez, good to see you. I haven't seen your face pop up in about 2 or 3 months. It's nice to see you again. Glad to see some of the old people coming in. And
Marina says, okay, she's going to send you some money. She's giving you thumbs up. So all of you other folks out there that know me, like Barry Lenore, the president of the United Black Fund, get your company checkbook out. Send this lady some money so that we can meet and greet her in person when she comes to the Congress after this election.
And the plain and simple.
Company can't send me any money. That will be illegal.
Barry, get your personal checkbook out and send us some money.
And the plain and simple fact is, if you finally want to put your money somewhere where you feel it's going to do some good in government, somebody that you don't have to say, God, why are they there? Why are they putting their hand on that book and swearing to anything? And you're from Texas, bless your heart. Mm-hmm. But if you want somebody in there that you can be proud that is in there representing you and knows that their heart feels like your heart and they're going to represent you properly, you're looking at the person on the screen. You'll finally have somebody that you feel good about them being there.
that's actually going to get to Congress and do some work for the people, period. So, yeah, Darlene, we got about 5 minutes left. I'm going to let you have the floor. It's yours. Like you're standing on the floor of Congress. Get them.
Jay and Ramon, I just can't thank you enough for extending your family to me. You have called me your sister. I take that to heart, and you are my brothers. I thank you 100% for allowing me to have this moment on your show. And you are right. We need people in Congress who actually want to do the work for the American people and want to do the work for their constituents to solve the problems. We have some big problems to solve. And instead of taking advantage of crises around the country for political gain, we can actually work to solve issues like our immigration problem. We have a climate change problem. Climate change is happening. It is real, and we must prepare now so that our children and our grandchildren can have a future on this planet. It is real. It is happening now. It's not a thing in the future. We must also do something about he said, our prison industrial complex. Yes, our prison system is used to fund more slavery. It is actually in the 13th Amendment of the Constitution. We must do something about our incarceration rate. We incarcerate more people here in this country than any place else in the world. In gun violence, it is not okay that our children have to take active shooter drills because we refuse to do something about the proliferation of guns in this country. There are common sense solutions that we can get to together, that we are not having our children shot up in school and our grandparents shot at a grocery store shopping. Together we can come as Americans and as Utahns. I'm running for the 4th Congressional District in Utah and solve problems. And I hope to be your representative in Congress. And if you don't live in Utah, it is okay, because we are in this together, out of many, one, as they say, because it takes all of us. It takes all of us.
Thank you so much, Darlene. I really appreciate you being on this broadcast with me and Ramon. And I can't wait to see you climb that ladder. And on election day, they say, Darlene McDonald has won this district and she's going to Washington. And I can't wait for you to come to Washington.
I'm calling you.
All right.
I'm asking now for tickets to be in the gallery when you're sworn in.
Oh, you got it.
And for God's sake, people, please support this woman. Please, for God's sake. This is what we need in this country now. We're at a crucial time in history. We're either going to save this country or we're going to lose it. And you're looking at a person who can start to save it.
That's right. I'm going to be in the press gallery. Yeah, so thank you so much, Darlene. You know I love you. I love you too, Ramon. You're my brother for 25, 30 years, okay?
You too, brother. And you know the struggle I'm going through right now. And you were right. Get on the camera and do something to lift yourself up, because I'm going through it right now.
Absolutely.
But thank you.
You know, my closing words are these. My grandfather used to always say to us when we had an opportunity to go to South Carolina and visit with him in the summer, my mother's people. And he built this big table around this big old oak tree. And all of us, me and my cousins, we'd be down there playing. And he'll say, all right, y'all get over here. And we would sit down. He says, do you know what it's all about? And we would just sit there and watch him. He said, it's not about the pigmentation of your skin or the color of your eyes. It's not about the texture of your hair. It's not about the clothes you wear. It's not about that deity that you pray to and call God. It's not about your traditions or your culture. And he would stand up and look at us and put his right hand over his heart. Say, you know what it's all about? And my cousin Mikey would say, no, Grandpa, what is it all about? He said, it's how you treat my heart. And your brother and your sister do not necessarily have to look like you to be your brother or your sister. So with that, I'll ask all of you to go to Darlene at votedarlene.com. Check her out. And when you check her out and when your heart starts to smile, make sure that your wallet smiles too. Send her some money. She needs help. And to Daniel Miller, you say, love you, my brothers and sisters. Peace, love, and happiness to us all. May we see each other again. Absolutely, Daniel. I hope to see you in person sometime soon. But I also have to let you all know something. You have to be vigilant about these guns. There was a powwow that's been going on for 50 years in Pennsylvania last Saturday. And some crazy white supremacists jumped over the barriers, ran into the circle when the color guard was coming in, snatched the American flag out of that color guard carrier's hand and threw it into the fire. The American flag. The only time you burn the American flag is if it hits the ground. But this fool threw it into the fire, and 3 or 4 of my brothers that were there grabbed him and escorted him to his truck. And when they opened the door to the truck, they picked him up and threw him in the truck. Then he comes out with an AR-15. He didn't have a clip in it. Thank God for that. And he took off. They informed the Pennsylvania state troopers and the local sheriff, and they caught him. And in his truck, he had several other, he was heavily armed weapons. Let me tell you about an AR-15. An AR-15 or AK-47 is a weapon designed to kill people in combat. No other purpose for it. Nobody except the military and the police, especially the police SWAT teams, should have possession of that weapon. Those weapons are not for hunting with or anything else. They're designed to kill people. And the NRA, shame on you for putting in some of these congressional members and senators money to support these weapons. Enough of that. Anytime you value a gun over a child's life, something is wrong with you. So I'll talk to you again next week. I'm Jay Winter Nightwolf, and I'll say to you in the words of my Cherokee people, Dana Da, Go Ahi, Wado, and vote for Darlene McDonald in Utah. All of my brothers and sisters out there, the Utes, the Skull Valley Ghost Utes, all of you out there, my friends, if you're not registered to vote, go and register. And this election, vote for Darlene McDonald. Thank you. I'll talk to you next week. Good night.